Hey everybody, welcome to the Mana Leek. I'm John as always, and it's time for the final set review for Ravnica Allegiance. We're going to go over all of the Rakdos cards, all of the Gruul cards, the artifact cards, and the land cards. Now, fun fact, I am recording this after my 9 hours of playing Ravnica Allegiance sealed on stream. If you want to see that, you can go to twitch.tv/themanaleek and go to videos, and you can watch the entire 9-hour stream where I play several sealed pools and play against several people such as Ryan Spain, Owen Turtenwald, and many other streamers. So check that out over at twitch.tv/themanaleek, and it might inform some of my grades today. But let's get on into the first card of Rakdos. Bedevil. Bedevil is black, red for an instant at rare. Destroy target artifact, creature, or planeswalker. This is super premium removal. It is splashable by Orzhov decks, which I did today. Easy first pick and just solid removal at instant speed even. It's a straight A-, if only because the casting cost will catch you now and then, but it's not too restrictive, and as long as you are Rakdos or, as I said, Orzhov, this will be a great addition to your deck and an easy first pick. Don't splash this in Gruul. You can't splash black, not easily anyways. A- for Bedevil. Captive Audience is up next. Captive Audience is 5 black-red for an enchantment at Mythic. Captive Audience enters the battlefield under the control of an opponent of your choice. At the beginning of your upkeep, choose one, and this is your opponent choosing because they own this now, they control this now. Choose one that hasn't been chosen. Your life total becomes 4, or discard your hand, or each opponent creates 5 2/2 black zombie creature tokens. Their opponent being you. You get 5 2/2s. This is bad. This is exceptionally bad. It's fantastic on the board, but 7 mana in aggro colors, and yes, surprise, Rakdos is very aggressive in this format with experience now. I don't ever see wanting to play this. I assume your opponent's choices will typically be discard hand, because it's turn 8. Who has a hand on turn 8? Then they'll go to 4. Then next turn is the 5 2/2s. So turn 10, your Rakdos aggro deck wins. This is really bad. I never want to play this card. I've got this at a straight F. I don't want to touch it. Yes, on the board, it's like an A, but you got to get it there and you just ain't. It's an F. F for Captive Audience. Up next is Cult Guildmage, the best art of the 10 Guildmages. Cult Guildmage is black and a red for a creature, human, shaman, and uncommon. It's a 2/2. Pay 3 and a black and tap it. Target player discards a card. Activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery, which is really bad for a Guildmage. Their whole great deal is that you can do it on your opponent's turn. But you can also pay a red and tap it and deal 1 damage to target opponent or planeswalker. So 4 mana to make your opponent discard is not great, but it is a mana sink, which is fine. It's better than nothing. The ping ability will always be a nice little bit of inevitability. You will slowly wear down your opponent. Yes, you do enable a spectacle, but as I've been saying a little bit in the comments, and I think I've said this in videos, there's no spectacle deck. There's not enough spectacle for there to be a spectacle deck. And even if you have like 4 or 5 spectacle cards, you only have to trigger them 1 time. So it's not a big deal that there are spectacle enablers. It's a nice little bonus, but it's not anything you have to break yourself for. Still, this is fine. It's a 2/2 for 2 that has a bit of inevitability with that ping. So I've got it at a C+. It's nothing better, just a C+ for Cult Guildmage. Up next is Fireblade Artist. Fireblade Artist is black-red for a creature, human, shaman, at uncommon. It's a 2/2 with haste. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may sacrifice a creature, so it can do itself. When you do, Fireblade Artist deals 2 damage to target opponent or planeswalker. This thing's really solid. We saw this in the pre-release. It's a hasty bear, which is already totally fine, and you'd play that most of the time. The ability is very nifty, and if you do have creatures with death triggers, it could be really good. If you are in a bit of a sort of Mardu deck with some white afterlife as well, or maybe just your black afterlife in your black-red deck, being able to sack itself is great. And if you do have a token producer, because this does say doesn't say non-token, you can just churn out tokens and sack them to this. We saw at the pre-release Aaron Campbell do a great combo using Hero of Precinct 1. This card seems really good, and in the right deck, I think it's like a B, a very solid B. If you're just sacking things willy-nilly, like you're sacking whatever you happen to have and don't really need, this drops more to like a C+. But in the right deck, this is a solid B for Fireblade Artist. Up next is Get the Point, not Get to the Point. Everybody says Get to the Point. I have said Get to the Point a couple of times, but Get the Point is 3 black-red for an instant at common, destroy target creature, scry 1. It's 5 mana instant speed removal at common, and it scries. This is good. This is first pickable. You should play every copy you get. It's very good. It's splashable. Solid A. This is just solid A for Get the Point. Up next is Hackerbat. Hackerbat is 1 black-red for a creature human rogue at uncommon. She's a 2/3 with Spectacle black-red, but there's nothing extra. It's just a discount. There's nothing fancy. Pay a black, she gets Death Touch until end of turn. Pay a red, she gets +2/-2 until end of turn. So you can only do that once. She can become a 4/1, but then she becomes very dead. She's fine. She's super duper fine. She's just solid. A 2/3 for 3 is not fantastic, but the conditional Death Touch is great. It really doesn't cost much to keep that 1 mana up. And if you can get in for 4, that's super solid. She's all around solid, like a strong C+. You're not going to go out of the way to grab her, but if you're Rakdos, you'll certainly play her 100% of the time. C+ for Hackerbat. Up next is Judith the Scourge Diva. Judith is 1 black-red for a legendary creature human shaman at rare. She's a 2/2. Other creatures you control get +1/+0. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, Judith the Scourge Diva deals 1 damage to any target. She's really good, especially in an aggro deck. 3 mana 2/2, sure not the best, but half Anthem the team, like +1/+0 the team, that's super helpful. Plus every creature that you have that dies gets to ping your opponent's face or kill 1/1s or eat away at creatures after combat. This technically gives all of your creatures +2/+0. Letting them really trade up because they do their damage with the +1/+0 and then they ping when they die. Judith is a solid first pick, not exactly a bomb. She requires a board state to go along with her, but she's a strong B+. B+ for Judith the Scourge Diva. Up next is Macabre Mockery. Macabre Mockery is 2 black-red for an instant keyword at uncommon. Put target creature from an opponent's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It gets +2/+0 and gains haste until end of turn. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. I don't know how to rate this card. I didn't play with it today and I saw one person play it against me once. It's a cool active treason variant, but ignoring the instant for a second, we're going to say that we're using this to attack. The upside of active treasons and threatens is that it takes a blocker away from the opponent. It's kind of like removal for the turn plus a hasty creature. This doesn't remove a blocker. It's so much worse because it doesn't remove a blocker. The situations where this is going to do really well for you on attacks is that the creature you're bringing back from your opponent's graveyard is so ludicrously insane they're just dead. Or you're in a situation where you're probably already winning, so why are you playing this card? Because this is instant, you can use it on defense. You can pull a creature from your opponent's graveyard, slap it on your board, give it +2/+0, trade with their creature, and you 1-for-1. That's not that exciting, and it's entirely built on the scenario that your opponent has had a creature that is relevant. +2/+0 should make most creatures relevant, but has a creature that's relevant in their graveyard for you to even bring back. You know me. I don't like doing that. I don't like assuming that things are going to go perfect in order for a card to even be castable. So I'm not a huge fan of this. I've got this at a C. I think I'm going to go C-. I've got this at a C-. I'm going to start down on this card. It could be that it's really good. It will get people the first week or so, but it's an uncommon. You should maybe play around it if you think there's a chance they have it. But I'm not going to start high on this card. I'm going to start on a C-. Up next is Rafter Demon. Rafter Demon is 2 black-red for a creature demon at common. It's a 4/2 with Spectacle, 3 black-red. So it's not a discount, it's a tax. But when it ETBs, if you did pay its Spectacle cost, then each opponent discards a card. Rafter Demon's not great. It's a 4/2 for 4, which I already don't like playing. So to make it 5, and all my opponent does is just discard a card, and I can only get that if I've dealt damage, I super don't care. This card feels deeply mediocre. I had chances to play it today, and I did not. I played against it, and it died to everything. I don't like this card. I've got it at a C-, and that might even be a little bit generous. Don't play Rafter Demon. It's not good. Up next is Rakdos Firewheeler. Rakdos Firewheeler is black, black, red, red for a creature human rogue at uncommon. It's a 4/3. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to target opponent and 2 damage to up to 1 target creature or planeswalker. This card's solid. It's not Night Veil Predator level of insanity, but a shock to your opponent and a shock to a creature, or if relevant, a planeswalker. Sidebar, I died to Kaya. She might actually do something in limited. Keep an eye on her. She might not be the D- we said yesterday. But yeah, this card has such a good upside. The body is fine. It feels less good for the cost that we're paying for it, because yes, we're paying 4 for a 4/3, but it feels more than 4, especially when it comes down on like turn 6 or 7. All in all, I think I'm on like just a B here. This is a B. This is solid. B for Rakdos Firewheeler. Up next is Rakdos Roustabout. Rakdos Roustabout is 1 black red for a creature ogre warrior at common. It's a 3/2. Whenever Rakdos Roustabout becomes blocked, it deals 1 damage to the player or planeswalker it's attacking. Also known as Afflict 1. Also known as possibly my least favorite set mechanic in the past few years. Yeah, I hate Afflict. It's so good. It puts you in those situations where you're just... It puts you in the impossible situations of you block and you're dead and you don't block and you're dead. Luckily, it's Afflict 1, which is the lowest impact it can be. And it also does hit planeswalkers, so it's slightly better than Afflict. But yeah, this card's fine. It's totally solid. It's a 3/2 for 3. And it's going to get through for damage, which means it can turn on Spectacle, which, as I said, is not a big deal. You'll turn on Spectacle relatively naturally, and trying to make sure you get your Spectacle enablers is not going to be a big deal, because you just don't have a ton of Spectacle in any given deck. Still, this is just a solid C+. I'd play every copy in every Rakdos deck. C+ for Rakdos Roustabout. Up next is Rakdos the Showstopper. Rakdos the Showstopper is 4 black red for a legendary creature demon at Mythic. He's a 6/6 flying trample. When Rakdos the Showstopper enters the battlefield, flip a coin for each creature that isn't a demon, devil, or imp. Destroy each creature whose coin comes up tails. Reading that out loud, I do kind of like that it's not telling you to win or lose a flip, it's telling you what the loss is, which is kind of cool. That's actually probably an mtgO thing, where it's just less clicks. So we've got a vanilla test passing 6/6 Flample. That's incredible and first pickable right there. Worst case scenario, you kill all your creatures, none of your opponents, and you still have a 6/6 flying trample. You're still probably fine unless their board is huge. Best case, of course, yours live and you wrath your opponents one-sidedly. That's super amazing. And of course, average case scenario is probably fine. Rakdos is incredible. Snap first pick. I don't think you build around and specifically put in bad imps and demons and devils. I think you just play them in a good black-red deck and it's going to be an absolute bomb. A+ for Rakdos, the Showstopper. Up next is Theater of Horrors. Theater of Horrors is 1 black red for an enchantment at rare. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. During your turn, if an opponent lost life this turn, you may play cards exiled with Theater of Horrors. Pay 3 and a red. Theater of Horrors deals 1 damage to target opponent or planeswalker. I didn't have a clue how to rate this card. I couldn't tell if it was going to be like Experimental Frenzy and be amazing, or if it wasn't going to be amazing, but I think it actually is really solid. So the activated ability by itself can just kill your opponent. Over a few turns, that might just be what it is that ends the game. But the fact that you get a card put under here every turn and it doesn't go away, so you always have like this secondary hand that at worst you can pay 4 mana to get access to, and at best you pay no mana, just hit them with a creature or ping them with a spear spewer or something, and suddenly you have access to a second hand. This card I think is actually really good. I had this as a I don't know D- to B+ in my notes. And after having seen it played a couple of times against me, not with me, unfortunately, I think it's actually really solid. I think it's around a B+, and I think I'd first pick it every single time. A Rakdos deck that has 2 hands that it gets to choose from is a really good deck. B+ for Theater of Horrors. The hybrid card for Rakdos is Footlight Fiend, black or red for a creature devil. Doesn't die to Rakdos. At common, it's a 1/1. When it dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. This, of course, is called Goblin Arsonist when we're not on Ravnica, I suppose. This is a fine card. It's not exciting. It's not a card that you go out of your way to play. You cut it if it doesn't make sense in your deck. But if you are a super low curve aggro deck, This card's fine. I'm not 100% of the time playing this, and I'm not 100% of the time cutting it. It's just a C. I am totally fine with Footlight Fiend in many of my Rakdos decks. The Orzhov decks might not want it quite as much, but middle of the road C for Footlight Fiend. Our first split card for Rakdos is Bedeck and Bedazzle. Bedeck is Rakdos, so black, or red, for an instant. Target creature gets +3/-3 until end of turn. Bedazzle for black-red at an instant. Destroy target non-basic land. Bedazzle deals 2 damage to target opponent or planeswalker. Bedeck is great. +3/-3. That's removal that you're going to use 99% of the time. It's super rare you're going to use +3/-3, but there's going to be that time where you need to deal 3 extra damage. You've got a 4/4. It's not going to get blocked. There you go. I'd first pick this in many decks. It goes into Orzhov, it goes into Gruul, and of course it plays in Rakdos really well. Great card. I've got it at like a B-. It's obviously not premium removal, but 2 mana instant speed is pretty decent. Bedazzle is garbage. Never cast this card. Never, ever cast this card. There's no reason for you to be killing non-basic lands. It's not important. And paying 6 mana to deal 2 damage to do it is not good. Absolute F for Bedazzle. Never cast that card. Always cast Bedeck. Our uncommon Rakdos split card is Carnival and Carnage. Carnival is a single Rakdos, black or red, for an instant. Carnival deals 1 damage to target creature or planeswalker and 1 damage to that permanent's controller. Carnage is 2 black-red for a sorcery. Carnage deals 3 damage to target opponent. That player discards 2 cards. Carnival is not exciting. I don't have a ton of interest in a single mana ping spell, even if it only costs 1 mana, because it still takes up a card slot in my deck. If I had that Death Touch spell thing, the Persistent Spirit, Pestilent Spirit, whatever it was called, then maybe it gets a little bit better, and I did have it on stream today, and it was pretty good as a 1 mana removal spell, but that of course is a bit pie in the sky. But still, this is fine. It does turn on Spectacle, and it will kill X1s, but you're never playing Carnival if Carnival was by itself. But Carnival's not by itself. It has Carnage, which is 3 damage to the face and a mind drop for 4 mana. It's basically Blightning, which is a lot better in Sealed. I played this actually multiple times in multiple pools today, and it was always fine. Like C+. I think after my experience today, I'd probably always play it in Sealed. In Draft, I'm less interested. I would need this to kind of be the top end of my super aggro deck, where that 3 damage is generally going to kill them. But I think it still only goes down to a C in Draft. I don't think this card's actually awful. I also don't think that you want to get too high up on it. So let's go with a C+ in Sealed, C for Carnival and Carnage. Alright, let's move on to Gruul, and then we're done all of the gold cards, and then all we have left is colorless and land. The first Gruul card is Bolrac-Clan Crusher. Bolrac-Clan Crusher is 3 red-green for a creature, ogre, warrior at uncommon. It's a 4/4. Tap it, remove a +1/+1 counter from a creature you control. Bolrac-Clan Crusher deals 2 damage to any target. This seems kind of cool. I think it might actually be good. I think there could be some really fun attempts at building a deck around this in a Teamer counters deck, because of course you get counters on both Adapt and Riot. I don't know if it'll actually work out. Only getting to do 2 damage a turn, because it taps itself, so you're only doing this once, isn't really a huge clock for your opponent, but it is a bit of inevitability, and it can also just eat things on the board that are problems, although not many X2s are problems, I would say. But, of course, fail state, it's a 5 mana 4/4, which isn't the worst thing in the world. So I think this is sort of like a C in an average deck and a C+ if you do have a bunch of counters. If you do successfully heavily build around it, it probably goes up. But I'm going to need to see that actually work before I move in on this. So C for Bolrac-Clan Crusher. Up next is Cindervines. Cindervines is black-red for an enchantment at rare. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, Cindervines deals 1 damage to that player. Pay 1, sacrifice Cindervines. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. Cindervines deals 2 damage to that permanent's controller. Another rare enchantment that I don't want to play. If you're in best of 1 over on Arena, maybe. But while there are some annoying enchantments, I don't think there's enough to really put this in, and there's not enough artifacts, although this does hit the Sphinx that we'll see. So maybe this does make your main deck in best of 1, but in best of 3 this should sit in your library. It just doesn't do anything. Opponents don't cast that many non-creature spells. The 1 damage is not going to be worth it, and you're maybe just never going to have a target. If you see a scary enchantment, if you see Ethereal Absolution, which is a must-kill enchantment, put this in, put this in, put this in, put this in. But this is going to be a rare that you feel really awful working. So I've got this at like a D, maybe like a D minus. It's a D plus if your opponent ever has Ethereal Absolution. But yeah, let's go D for Cindervines. Up next is the Gruul Guildmage, the last of the set review here. Red-green for a creature human shaman at uncommon. It's a 2/2. Pay 1 and a red, tap it, target creature can't block this turn. Pay 2 and a green, tap it, target land you control becomes a 4/4 elemental green creature with haste. Until end of turn, it's still a land. Not a huge fan of this. It doesn't seem amazing. It's 2/2 for 2, which sure, Gruul's probably okay with that. The 1 red ability will be helpful-ish if your opponent doesn't have many creatures, but target creature can't block is so much worse than target creature can't be blocked. So I'm not a huge fan of it, but it will help you a little bit. That's still fine. I'm not down on this. I'm not negating this card. I'm just saying it's not nearly as powerful as it could be. The 2 and a green is all right, but it does actually cost you 4 mana because you're attacking with that land. It is taking you off a land there. So I'm not a huge fan of this. On defense, you can make a 4/4, which is kind of cool, but I don't know that Gruul ever wants to be on the defense. This is probably just a fine C+. You probably still just always play it, but I don't think you're going out of your way for it. You're not first picking it, and I don't even think it's a pull into Gruul. So C+ for Clan Guildmage. Up next is Domri Chaosbringer. Domri Chaosbringer is 2 red-green for legendary Planeswalker Domri at Mythic. I did play against all 3 Planeswalkers, by the way, and Kaya's the only one that beat me. I beat Domri and Dovin. Anyways, he's a Mythic, and he starts with 5 loyalty for 4 mana, which is not common. +1, add red or green. If that mana is spent on a creature spell, it gains Riot. Remember, Riot does stack, so if you have Riot, you get to make 2 choices, 2 counters, double haste if you wanted. -3, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal up to 2 creature cards from among them and put them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. -8, you get an emblem with, at the beginning of each end step, create a 4/4 red and green beast creature token with trample. So as I said, Domri is one of the few, maybe only Planeswalkers to actually crush the mana for loyalty test, getting 5 loyalty for 4 mana. Ramping's nice, but remember, ramp turn 4 and later is less impressive, but still, the extra Riot trigger is super good. I don't even care if it's not even ramping me. That Riot trigger can be very, very, very powerful, as I found out. The minus ability is fine. Getting 2 creatures out of 4 cards is nice, and I thought I'd run some quick stats here. If you do play Domri on turn 4 and you saw a normal distribution of creatures in a 16 creature deck, you're 87% likely to see 1 or more creatures. Seeing 2 or more is a coin flip, 50% chance of you seeing 2 or more. 3 or more is way down at 13%, 1 in 10 games, and getting to actually choose from 4 creatures is a 1 in 100 game occurrence. So realistically, you're seeing 2 creatures off of this and taking those 2 creatures. Getting 3 or more creatures is just super unlikely, but that's still fine. That's still totally fine. Filling up your hand on a aggro-ish deck, the Gruul deck is definitely a little bit bigger rather than sort of hit the board running aggro, but that's still a totally fine -3 there. And then Domri's ultimate is fine. You'll win the game given time, but it is going to take time. When I was facing down Domri in the event today, them getting a 4/4 every turn didn't feel like the worst, so I actually kind of just kept pinging away at Domri and just didn't really focus on him, because the ultimate, it's really far away, especially if you -3 basically once. So Domri, I think, is fine, and I think if you do have a bunch of creatures in hand, which is -3 will help, it can be hard to lose, but you can still lose with him. So I think he's fine. I think he's like an A-. Snap first pick in every pack, as many Planeswalkers are. But yeah, he's beatable, and I have proof. Up next is Frenzied Arinx. Frenzied Arinx is 2 red-green for a creature cat beast at common, I said. It's a 3/3 with Riot and Trample. Pay 4 red-green, it gets +3/+0 until end of turn. This thing's insane. This thing is super, super, super good. A 3/3 haste for 4 with trample, and you can pump it to be a 6/3 trample is super good. A 4/4 trample that you can pump to be a 7/4 trample is really, really good. This thing's incredible. It's crazy that it's a common. This should pull you into Gruul. If you see this card relatively late, Gruul is open and get into it. I think this is just a solid B minus. B feels high, but let me tell you, I played with it a lot today and it really felt like a B. That's tough. I'm going to go with B. I'm going to go with B for Frenzied Airings. It's super, super good and should be a relatively high pick. The second you know you're in Gruul, the second you think you might head towards Gruul, you want to get yourself a Frenzied Airings or 2 or 3. Up next is Gruul Spellbreaker. Gruul Spellbreaker is 1 red-green for a creature, ogre, warrior at rare. It's a 3/3 with Riot and Trample and Hexproof on your turn. I saw people going nuts over this, and I think it must be for standard because it's honestly not that exciting. It's just not that exciting to me. It's a 3/3 trample with haste for 3, which is fine. You know, we played 1 red 3/3 haste. It was a gremlin of some sort in Kaladesh. It was fine. And it's a 4/4 trample for 3, which is actually pretty darn good. But this is only hexproof half the time. And there's a lot of removal kicking around, and your opponent will kill this if they have to. And if they don't, because it's just a 3/3 and that's not huge, then they won't. So I don't think Gruul Spellbreaker is like a slam first pick or anything. I think you definitely would take removal over this. You would certainly take bombs over this. But then, you know, you can move into efficiency, and it's a pretty solid pick there. It's still like a B minus. It's still a very decent card. I just don't think it's a rare that I'm super excited to open, but it's also nowhere near some of those awful enchantments we saw either. So B minus for Gruul Spellbreaker. I don't quite get the hype unless it's for standard or something. Up next is Nikia of the Old Ways. Nikia is 3 red-green for a legendary creature, Centaur Druid at rare. She's a 5/5. You can't cast non-creature spells. Whenever you tap a land for mana, add 1 mana of any type that land produced. Not huge on her. She's a 5/5 for 5, so sure, I'll put her in my deck, but we've talked about this. Ramping on turn 5 is just not what I'm looking for. Turn 6, you get to barf out whatever remains in your hand, which if you curved out is nothing. And red-green isn't exactly going to be replenishing your hand. And any of your combat tricks, any of your removal, well, tough. They're just stuck in your hand forever. All in all, I think she's like a C+. Like, I'd probably play her if I had a spot and if I had her, but I don't think I'm ever going to actively pick her before somebody else takes her. So C+ for Nikia, but I don't think she's that good. C+. Maybe worse, actually. Up next is Ravager Worm, which has really cool animations on Arena. Ravager Worm is 3 red-green for a creature worm at Mythic. It's a 4/5 with Riot. When it enters the battlefield, choose up to 1. Ravager Worm fights target creature you don't control, or destroy target land with an activated ability that isn't a mana ability. I'll spoil the rest of the video here. There's not any. There's not any. You're never choosing the second mode of this ever. But it's a 4/5 haste that kills anything that has less than 5 power or less than 5 toughness and lives through it if it has less than 5 power. And if you don't want haste, you can make it a 5/6 that will probably kill virtually everything that it wants to fight with. This card's fantastic. The casting cost is a bit restrictive. 3 red-green. You're never casting this in a Rakdos deck. You're only casting this in Gruul or Simic, and you're casting it relatively late, but it is still really, really good. I don't think I first pick this over the most premium of removal, but I think I pick it up after that. I think it's still fine. You just have to make sure you're going to get to this casting cost. I've got it at a B+. It is super solid. It's kind of like an Affectionate Indrik, actually. Same casting cost, just a lot more restrictive mana colors in it. So I'm going to put this at a B+. I think it is very good. I think it is a very high pick. You need to make sure you're getting to that mana cost, though. And hopefully you can, and if you do, sold. But it can be a little bit restrictive, so be careful. B+ for Ravager Worm. Up next is Rhythm of the Wild. Rhythm of the Wild is 1 red-green for an enchantment at uncommon. Creature spells you control can't be countered. Non-token creatures you control have Riot. This one I think has been controversial. I think I've seen a lot of people say this is insane, and I think I've seen some people say it's not very good. I, in my notes, was on the not very good track. I, in fact, gave it an F. I said the first line is flavor text, which it is, and the second line's cute, but I think just playing a 3-drop creature would deal more damage than the riot ability being applied to future creatures would. I think this is a trap, don't play it. I did not play this card today, but I played against it at least 3 or 4 times, and I think I won every time. A lot of the times this came down on 3 or 4 or 5, and the opponent would follow up with like 1 creature a turn, and the extra riot was cool, but it was never super impactful. I can't say if I won every single game, but I definitely won a lot of the games where my opponent played this card. I think it can be good, but what I think I discovered is that it has to really be rapidly followed by a bunch of creatures. You can't just cast a creature a turn after playing this. You need to double spell a few times. So I'm still iffy on this card. I'm still not sold on it being amazing. I think it can be, but I think it's very high variance, and that of course is how I dislike playing Magic. And so as a result, I'm gonna start low on this. I will still probably give this a go the first chance I get to get some more experience with it, see it more on my side of the table game after game rather than seeing it, you know, a game here or a game there. But I'm gonna start this low on, I think, like a D+ build around, I guess is sort of what I'm trying to go for. Like if it works out and your hand does what you need it to do, it's great. I just don't know how often you can control that. So let's not give this a grade. Let's not give this a grade. I will say be careful with it. I'm not sold on it being good, and I need more experience with it. Up next is Rubblebelt Runner. Rubblebelt Runner is really hard to say. 1 red-green for a creature Viashino Warrior at common. It's a 3/3. The name of this card can't be blocked by creature tokens. I'm not saying it again. Yeah, this is fine. It's a 3/3 for 3 that has a minor upside, like it can't be blocked by 1/1 spirits. Okay, that's not huge. This is just a C. Yeah, it's just a C. Like, it's not exciting. 3/3 for 3 is one of my really favorite vanilla test passing casting costs and power and toughnesses. It's just really relevant on turn 3, usually still quite relevant on turn 4, turn 5 sometimes even, and it's not a bad top deck like a 2/2 for 2 is. So yeah, I think this is just a solid C. Cut it, play it. It's going to be solid. Rubblebelt Runner. Up next is Savage Smash. Savage Smash is 1 red-green for a sorcery at common. Target creature you control gets +2/+2 until end of turn. It fights target creature you don't control. This is great. Absolutely great. Non-power toughness pumping fight is not that great because your creatures will frequently die, especially in sets like this where a lot of the creatures have the same power and toughness. There's a lot of 3/3s and a lot of 2/2s and a lot of 4/4s. And +2/+2 will basically put almost all of your creatures in range of living post-fight. Unless you're like trying to fight a 1/1 against a 6/6 or something. Super, super good. It'd be incredible if it was instant speed, but it's not, but it's still really, really handy. Can be used very well to kill the only blocker your opponent lives, also has +2/+2. Really decent card. I think it's a very high pick. It's a pull into Gruul. It's a sign that Gruul is open. I've got this at just a solid B. Savage Smash is great. Up next is Sunder Shaman. Sunder Shaman is red, green for a creature giant shaman at a common. It's a 5/5. It can't be blocked by more than 1 creature. Whenever Sunder Shaman deals combat damage to a player, destroy target artifact or enchantment that player controls. It's fine. It's a 5/5 for 4, which is scary, but remember, these things don't often come down on turn 4. It takes a little bit of luck to do that. But it can't be double blocked, and that's kinda stupid. Luckily, there is a lot of removal in this format. I've heard people say that there's not much and it's not good. I think they are incredibly wrong. It dies to all kinds of removal, which is great. You're going to need to get removal for this, but it's still a very strong pick once you're heading towards Gruul. It's going to feel like a great reward to open this pack 3 when you're heavily in Gruul already. Solid card. I think it's like a solid B- maybe. It does get chump blocked forever. It doesn't have trample. Keyword big, as they say. So I think it's just a very solid B-. The naturalizability, if it's ever relevant, will be nice. but I don't think that's really that cool of an upside. So B- for Sunder Shaman. Our last gold card for Gruul is Zerta Goblin. Zerta Goblin is red-green for a creature Goblin Berserker at uncommon. It's a 2/2 with Riot. So it's a 2/2 with haste for 2, which is totally fine. It's a 3/3 for 2. Totally fine. This card's just totally fine. It's a strong C+. You're not jumping into Gruul because you see this card. You're not taking this over removal or anything else, but you'll play every single copy you can get your hands on. C+ for Zerta Goblin. Our final hybrid card is Rubble Slinger. Rubble Slinger is 2 and a Gruul, so 2 red or 2 green for a creature human warrior at common. She's a 2/3 with Reach. She's solid. She's really solid. I played against these a few times and they were backbreaking. I played these a few times and they were backbreaking. Main deck these 100% of the time. They are just stupidly solid and efficient. They block all those 1/1 spirits really, really well. They block the 1/1 Thopters. They block a ton. I think this is a strong C+. I'd play probably every copy I can get my hand on. Maybe like the third one is starting to be a bit diminishing returns because it is a 2/3 for 3, but still strong C+ for Rubble Slinger. Our first Gruul split card is the uncommon Collision and Colossus. Collision is 1 and a Gruul, 1 red or 1 green for an instant. Collision deals 6 damage to target creature with flying. Colossus is red-green for an instant. Target creature gets +4/+2 and gains trample. That's a big word there, until end of turn. Collision's not great. It's like sideboard only in best of 3. I would very rarely ever main deck this in best of 3. Best of 1, jam this in your deck. Unfortunately, you'll face the flying decks where there's a ton of them, and 1 flying spot removal is not gonna be enough. But it's something. But luckily, Colossus is at home in a Gruul deck. +4 and trample for 2 mana is kind of ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous. And +2 might even mean the creature survives. If that needs to happen, you might just win the game when your 4/4 is suddenly an 8/8 trample and it was chump blocked by a 1/1. Suddenly 7 damage to your opponent's face. That's more than a lava axe for 2 damage. Colossus is really, really good. Obviously, you can get blown out by it. Cast this spell and they bounce your creature or kill your creature in response or whatever. But it's super, super good. And I had a lot of luck pairing it with an amplifier, I will say. Amplifier is probably not as bad as I thought. It's also not as good as people said, but it's not as bad as I thought. But Collision Colossus I think is great. I think you always main deck this in every Gruul deck because every Gruul deck wants Colossus. Rarely, hopefully never, you have to use Collision, but it's there if you need it. But I think this is a strong B-. +4/+2 and trample for 2 mana is just ludicrous. So B- for Collision Colossus. That's mostly for Colossus though. And our final split card is Thrash and Threat. Thrash is Gruul, red, green, or red-green for an instant at rare. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker you don't control. This is not a fight, it is a bite. It is one-sided. Threat is 2 red-green for a sorcery. Create a 4/4 red and green beast creature token with trample. Thrash is amazing. Absolutely amazing. Instant speed bite for 2 mana is crazy. That is super great removal. You do need to have a creature for it, but it's a B+. It's super first pickable removal. Absolutely fantastic. Play it. Threat, I think, is kind of the not the default move here. You don't want to cast Threat, but sometimes you're ahead, so why not drop a 4/4, or you desperately need a 4/4, or you don't have something that Thrash can be cast on in order to kill a creature. But I think Thrash is what you really want to be doing here. So this card overall is a strong B+. It's a great card. First pick it. It's a rare that you're absolutely happy seeing. B+ for Thrash and Threat. Oh, we made it through the gold cards. We're off to the artifacts. The rest of this set review should go relatively quick. Up first is the lockets: Azorius Locket, Gruul Locket, Orzhov Locket, Rakdos Locket, and Simic Locket. All of them cost 3 mana. All of them tap for 1 mana of the guild's color if you want white or blue for Azorius, for example, and you can pay 4 of the hybrid color, tap it, and sacrifice it to draw 2 cards. I hate the lockets. I hated them in Guilds of Ravnica. They were not good. You should have never played them, and the same is true here. Even in sealed, I don't like them. Every time I see my opponent play this on turn 3, cool. I just deal more damage to them with my established board as opposed to playing a locket. They're super, super bad. I've got them at like a D-. Sometimes maybe you're just desperate for the fixing or desperate for a 23rd card, but boy, there's so much more you can play over these cards. They're not good. D- for all the lockets. Up next is Gate Colossus. Gate Colossus is 8 generic mana for an artifact creature construct at uncommon. It's an 8/8. It does cost 1 less to cast for each gate you control. It can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. Whenever a gate enters the battlefield under your control, you may put Gate Colossus from your graveyard on top of your library. This is a great gate payoff. The gate deck is definitely a little bit more real. I didn't see anybody have it today, and I didn't have it. It's not something that's going to happen in sealed very often. That's more of a draft thing. This is great, I think, in the gate deck. You know, if you're putting down a gate for your first 3 or 4 turns, and this comes down on turn 4, it's going to be really hard to deal with, especially with it coming back if your opponent does find a way of killing it. That being said, it does die to double or triple blocking, it does die to removal, and it dies to artifact hate. So it is actually a little bit more fragile than just an 8/8 would be, but it's still totally solid. If you are in that gate deck, I think this is very much like a B+, somewhere around the BP+ range. If you're not in the gate deck, I don't think you play this. You need this to be discounted at least 3, maybe even 4 mana, 3 mana. I think you need this to be discounted 3 mana for it to be super solid. You know what? I have the experience now. I can tell you from experience, you don't just get to 7 or 8 mana. You will just die often before that happens. So be careful with this. In the gate deck, though, I think it's going to be a very solid BB+. Up next is Glass of the Guildpact. Glass of the Guildpact is 2 generic mana for an artifact at rare. Multicolored creatures you control get +1/+1. 2 mana for this anthem is kind of crazy, but you do need to be loaded up on those multicolored creatures. Pro tip: the spirits from Afterlife are black and white. They are gold. I would want a bare minimum of like 6 or 7 multicolored creatures before I consider playing this. If you have less than this, this rapidly drops to an F. You just shouldn't play it. If you have more, this is like a strong B. I don't know that you take this and build around it. I think this really is much better at home as like a pack 2, pack 3 reward. But if you're in the right deck, this is just kind of nutty. So yeah, this ranges from a B to an F. Know when to play it, know when to cut it. Up next is Junk Troller. Junk Troller is 4 generic mana for an artifact creature golem at uncommon. It's got Defender. It's an 0/6. Tap it to put the target card from a graveyard on the bottom of its owner's library. This card's awful. It's garbage. It's a 4 mana 0/6. It doesn't attack. It doesn't do anything. You tap it to put a card from a graveyard, and there's not too much graveyard interaction, and you put it to the bottom of the library, which doesn't matter either. This card doesn't do anything. That being said, I think High Alert might be a real draft deck. Might be. And this card goes in it. Beyond that one singular deck, this is a D-, I think. Just don't really ever play this card. D- for Junk Troller. Up next is Scrabbling Claws. Scrabbling Claws is 1 generic mana for an artifact at uncommon. Tap it. Target player exiles a card from their graveyard. Pay 1, sacrifice it. Exile target card from a graveyard. Draw a card. This card does nothing. It's 1 mana. It's a card in your deck. That's expensive. You exile a card from a graveyard. That doesn't matter. You pay 1 and sack it to draw a card. That doesn't matter. We're paying 2 mana to draw a card. You can find better cards in your sealed pool. You can find way better cards in your draft. This card's an F. You should just never, ever, ever play it. Up next is Screaming Shield. Screaming Shield is 1 generic mana for an artifact equipment at uncommon. Equipped creature gets +0/+3 and has pay 2 and tap it. Target player puts the top 3 cards of their library into their graveyard. The equip cost is 3. The flavor text is shh. It's not good. It does not make the mill deck be a thing. You have to pay 5 before you even begin to mill the first 3 cards. Sorry, 6, because you have to cast this thing. It's awful. It's an F. You should just never, ever, ever be playing this card. Even in the High Alert deck, no. The creatures that are great in the High Alert deck, the 0/6s, the 2/5s, etc., are already have the toughness they need. There's no reason for you to play this card. F for Screaming Shield. Our second last artifact is Sphinx of the Guildpact. Sphinx of the Guildpact is 7 generic mana for an artifact creature Sphinx at uncommon. It's a 5/5. It is all colors. It has flying, and it has hexproof from monocolored. This is one of the only 2 artifacts I'm actually slightly afraid of, but 7 is a lot of mana. You're not getting a discount on this like you are the Gate Colossus. That being said, I have played against this a few times, and that hexproof from monocolored hurts. It hurts, but 7 mana is too much for me. I have to be in a ramp deck. I have to be somehow getting this out sooner, or somehow ensuring that I'm hitting 7 lands by turn 7, maybe 8, because the average game, you're not going to hit 7 on 7 or 7 on 8. You're going to hit 7 on like 9, 10, even worse. So Sphinx of the Guildpact is not going to go in every deck. You should cut it in a lot of decks, but in the deck that can actually cast this on curve or maybe even a turn early, it's fine. It's like a C, maybe a C+ in those decks. Let's say C+ in those decks, but very cuttable everywhere else. The final artifact is Tome of the Guildpact, 5 generic mana for an artifact rare, sorry. Another bad rare here. Whenever you cast a multicolored spell, draw a card. Cool. Tap, add 1 mana of any color. That's it. It's a Gilded Lotus, but you get 1 mana of any color, not 3 mana of any color. I would need to be... No, never mind. I was going to say I would need to be loaded on multicolored spells to play this, but this is my turn 5 play. My turn 5 play has to do something, and this doesn't do something. So I don't want to play Tome of the Guildpact in a deck that has less than 7 or 8 multicolored spells. I don't want to play Tome of the Guildpact in a deck that does have, 23, 22, I guess, because you have to play this card too. 22 multicolored spells. I still don't think I want to play this card. Super don't like it. That 5 mana is way too big of a cost for what this does. I'm going to put my foot down again and say F for Tome of the Guildpact. And finally, onto the lands. We don't have much to talk about here. We have Azorius Guildgate, we have Gruul Guildgate, we have Orzhov Guildgate, we have Rakdos Guildgate and Simic Guildgate. 2 different arts, but they do show up in the land slot of the decks, of the pack. So there's 1 per pack, guaranteed. There's never any more unless there's a foil. They are fine if you need them. If you're in the colors, you play them generally, unless you're super low curve aggro. If you're splashing, they're good. I don't have anything else to say about these. These are like C+. Pick them. They're important. You need them for your decks unless you're low curve aggro. That's about it. Same thing for Breeding Pool, Godless Shrine, Hallowed Fountain, Blood Crypt, which I missed alphabetically there, and Stomping Ground. These are basically guild gates as well. You can pay 2 life to shock them in. That's not that amazing. Sometimes it will be helpful, but you're generally going to first pick these if you're in paper because they're worth generally a pretty large fraction of the draft, maybe the full draft, but maybe not quite. I'm not sure actually what the prices are on these just at the moment, but otherwise you should be passing these if you're not playing that color. If you're splashing, cool. If you're in those colors, cool. Play them basically the same as guild gates. So other than those 15 lands, we have 1 more gate. We have Gateway Plaza. Gateway Plaza, of course, is a land gate common. It enters tapped, and you have to pay 1 or sacrifice it when it comes into play, but it taps as a mana of any color. We saw this in Return to Ravnica. It was great in the gate deck. You generally didn't play it anywhere else, and the same thing is going to hold true. I don't want to play a Gateway Plaza to fix my mana. Paying that 1 mana is a real cost. But if I'm in the gate deck, I need that fixing, and Gateway Plaza is going to be really solid there, and it's a gate, which helps all of your Gate Matters cards. So in the gate deck, it's like a C+. Outside of the gate deck, it's like maybe a D+, I'll say. And our final card is Plaza of Harmony. Plaza of Harmony is a land at rare, another rare I don't want to open. When Plaza of Harmony enters the battlefield, if you control 2 or more gates, you gain 3 life. Big whoop, I don't care. Tap it to add a mana. Tap it to add 1 mana of any type that a gate you control could produce. Gate deck, this is great. You're getting 3 life, which almost doesn't matter, but you're getting a Gateway Plaza that you don't have to pay 1 for. You're getting a Gateway Plaza, I guess Gateway Plaza actually you pay 2 for because it's tapped by itself. So this is a much bigger upgrade, but it's not a gate itself. So kind of a weird downside there. Ultimately, I think this is probably still just like a C+ in the gate deck. I'm not super hyped for this. I need to get those payoffs first before I want to be grabbing this. So I think it's a C+ in the gate deck. If you're not in the gate deck, you just don't play this card. You super duper don't play this card. It's basically an F. You should just never pick it. Whew, we made it. 259 cards rated. That was a long one, and today's recording being after the 9 hours of streaming I did of Ravnica Allegiance was pretty darn big. Anyways, I'm super excited for this format. I've played 9 hours of sealed of it already, and I'm really liking it. No guild feels super overpowered. No guild stands out. I'm actually walking into pre-release this Saturday, still not knowing what guild I'm going to pick, and I think I could randomly be handed one and be fine with it. Orzhov is feeling ever so slightly weaker than the rest, unless you open Ethereal Absolution, in which case it is incredible. But Gruul can have some very explosive late game stuff going on. Rakdos can absolutely be very fast and go underneath you. Has a lot of removal as well. Orzhov really controls the skies. You can even pull off a high alert deck, which I think is going to be a very real draft deck. It's less real in sealed because you just get what you get. You may not have everything, but be on the lookout for that. In fact, I actually think Azorius has 3 different decks that you can draft. One's a gimmick based on one card, but the other 2, controlling or tempo flyers, are both pretty cool. And in fact, I think most decks have a couple of different decks. Super excited for this format. I can't say enough about that. So let me know what you think of the set review. Let me know what you think of your experience of Ravnica Allegiance. You guys are going to be able to play this tomorrow on MTGO, or actually, sorry, today when you watch this, on MTGO and Magic Arena. So let me know how it's going for you. And pre-release, of course, is this weekend. We're going to have pre-release recap vlog available on Sunday, where I'm going to take you through my day, my whole day, where, you know, my coffee in the morning, but then, of course, most importantly, my deck build, my matches, all those recaps. That's going to go up on Sunday. Saturday will be a spiky Saturday. I will do a sealed on MTGO of Ravnica Allegiance, the set that we're about to play. And then, of course, immediately starting next week, we're into Crack Pack Tuesdays of Ravnica Allegiance, spiky Saturdays of Ravnica Allegiance, and, of course, the Twitch streams that I'm doing. So, as always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can find me on Twitter at @TheManaLeek. That's Leek, like the vegetable, not the card. You can find me at Facebook.com/TheManaLeek, Twitch.tv/TheManaLeek, where, if you're watching this before 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you should go over there, because I'm going to start streaming, and a little while after that, we're going to do the Grand Prix Marble Race, where you can win an Inked Gaming playmat. So check that out, Twitch.tv/TheManaLeek. And if you go over to InkedGaming.com and want to buy a playmat, or a board game, or sleeves, or dice box, or whatever, or if they have hoodies, they have really cool hoodies, you can use the promo code MANALEEK10, all one word, at checkout to get 10% off your order. As always, if you do have any questions, comments, or suggestions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you all at the pre-release.